8 and then down, then 4, then it cut off. That was weird.
Yeah, mine went from 6 to 1. But Jake Barrett.
Andrew Jones. I think we're good to start.
How are you?
I'm outstanding. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Making the realization that I still haven't changed Alyssa's last name. And at this point, I actually thought about you because I always just think about the government and how fucked it is. And every hoop you have to go through in order to change your name. Social Security card, DMV, oh God. And then, of course, everything's paper for a while. And then every other document you've ever had your name on, you got to change. Passport included. And it all costs an extra fee.
Yeah, dude. It's a scam.
Oh.
Yeah, marriage was actually taken control of by the state from religious institutions to interfere in the ability of interracial couples being able to marry.
Oh, I believe that. I believe that 100%. That's wild, though. It's so starting pretty much in the South. Well, I could have started in the North, too. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Yeah, I was just, like, going through this process, and I'm like, who made it this fucked? Like, all I want to do is just change the last name. But, you know what's funny, though, is, again, capitalism always finds its kind of pragmatic kind of way. The only time we've ever had trouble with it is when we were in Las Vegas, funny enough. She was going up to go ahead and go to her room, and she showed up to the lobby first, and they're like, yeah, it's under Jones, and she saw her credit card said Alyssa Jones, but her last name is still Thompson, and they were like, whoa, man, whoa, hey there. Like, we're going to have to see, like, Andrew Jones, and then I walked right through the door, and I was like, no shit. A fucking casino in Las Vegas is the only institution that's ever given me shit. Ever.
So she had a credit card with Alyssa Jones, but her name hadn't officially been changed yet?
Oh, you can name whatever the hell you want on a credit card. At least that's been my experience.
No shit.
I have my card, and it says Andrew Jones, and she's part of that account, and I just was like, oh, I'll just get you another one, put you on that account when we first got married. And it says Alyssa Jones on it. Never had a problem. Ever. It's just... Also, funny story, too, about a motorcycle. I don't know if you saw.
I did see that.
And obviously in the state of Utah, in every state, you need to have a motorcycle endorsement. But you don't need a motorcycle endorsement to go and buy a motorcycle. So you can go buy something and just look at it for a while. I guess you could do the same thing with a car. A 14-year-old, if he shows up with $30,000 in cash and he's like, I want that, Chevy. They go, okay, yeah, sure, dude. I mean, who's going to say no to that?
I've known a few people who get the motorcycle and then just start riding without the endorsement. And for the most part, they aren't given any shit. And if they get pulled over, cops don't seem to care, at least in this state.
Yeah, Utah's kind of like this. I don't know. I feel like they have their shit together here, at least on a state government level, a little bit better, infrastructure-wise and also police-wise. But then again, I lived in Park, Arizona, the third world of the fucking modern world, and then I moved to Phoenix, downtown Phoenix, and that's just a complete shit show. But, I thought about you this week because I was just like, well, I can go buy a motorcycle without an endorsement. Again, pragmatism versus stupidity. And then in order to change somebody's last name, pragmatically, I really don't need to do that. And funny enough, I actually have a friend of mine that I work with. He lives right down the road. He was giving me shit about it. And then he goes, yeah, my wife hasn't changed her last name in like 11 years of marriage. It's like, you have 3 kids, though, dude. He's like, yeah, it's fine, whatever. They just take my last name. Who cares? And he's like, it's much easier when they're born because you just get it all done there at the hospital. It's easy. I'm like, it's easier to like change or create a name than it is to fucking change a name. I'm really going on this name tangent right now, but I was really mad about it.
Yeah, I get that. Like that's annoying, but of course, like that's the default state of government is stagnant bureaucracy. So just changing a name, of course, is going to be difficult.
Versus just pure pragmatism. That's kind of like my ideology now. Now that we've done a couple of these episodes, that is now my theme. That is my religion. I don't care for absolutism I just care for what works and what will always work. Because intrinsically, I think us as humans, that's all we really care about, even if we think this is how it should be versus this is how I envision it to be. You're always going to follow that, whichever way it works. I mean, that's why
it's always going to be decentralization, right? Not having a central person or group of people who are artificially placed in a position of power to control something, right? Mm-hmm. They need to naturally rise to that point. Like, say, Elon Musk running Tesla and SpaceX, right? He created this thing, and he's running the fuck out of it. Mm-hmm. But, you know, someone who we elect to be the president of the United States typically does a horrible job.
Oh, yeah. No, well, I always kind of, my litmus test now for this is, you know, when you have a kid, well, obviously, you know, if anybody has a child, like, and you know, they're like, the kid's going crazy, and then you hand them an iPad. And then they're like glued to that fucking thing. They can't take their eyes off of it. And then you're like, well, I feel terrible because this kid's staring at an iPad. And then all of a sudden you're just thinking to yourself, like, well, that was the path of least resistance. Fuck it. Here's the kid with the iPad. And, you know, soon enough, we'll just have a bunch of kids staring at iPads. But, you know, again, our parents or our grandparents, great-grandparents probably look at their kids and they're like, yeah, just put them in front of the TV. Fuck that kid. And, I mean, we turned out okay. Well, not us, but our parents. Our parents just turned out fucked. But we're all right. We're in between. Millennials are doing okay.
We're probably the last generation to go outside and play and do shit without the over-aggressive nanny state clamping down on kids playing at parks by themselves.
I fully endorse kids with forks and outlets. 100%. Just let them figure it out. But what you do is you just give them, you know, you give them the fork with just one tooth in it. So they're either hitting the positive or the negative or the ground. They can never, like, complete the circuit. That's smart parenting. It's not. It's
thought about this, haven't you?
Oh, yeah. Well, I would imagine looking at my dad, or hell, even your dad, he'd probably be like, you know, it'd be really smart. Just give them like a fork with just one, and they can stick it in one, but they can't complete the circuit. But you give them two forks, out of the fucked.
Our dads would say to do the two forks thing.
Probably. Yeah, well, they'd put as many fucking teeth on there as possible and be like, you know, here's the wire brush. Go slam it against the fucking outlet and see what happens.
Yeah. So did you end up getting your motorcycle endorsement or no?
I did, yeah.
How difficult was that?
Well, in the state of Utah, the license, you have to do a written test, which I studied a lot for, sadly enough. But I passed it, and I got like a 90%, so it really wasn't that hard.
Do you feel like you would have needed to study for it?
Yeah.
Like what kind of things are they asking you that's different from regular traffic laws?
It's just very specific. I mean, like, think of your traffic. Like when you got your permit at 16, you go through whatever, and they ask you for very specific, like, how fast do you need to go in order to be in like a school zone? And your mind's like 15 miles an hour. It's like, no, fuck you, it's 10. And you're like, okay, well, I got that wrong.
Is that really it?
It would be questions like that would get me mixed up, because
gotcha.
As a rational human being, again, government, right? So it really wasn't that hard doing the written test and studying for it. And I learned some things on the written test, at least how to be a better operator. But now you have to do a writing test too. But that's like, takes like 10 minutes. Swerve around some cones. If you stall your engine, you fail. Dumb shit like that. But, you know, at the end of the day, just operating anything like that, you think to yourself, Jesus Christ, I'm operating a 600-pound vehicle that can go like 100 plus miles an hour. And, well, you'd probably end up killing yourself before you kill anybody else. But the logic here is these tests really aren't that hard. But, you know, I'm okay with that. Because, you know, if you want to go ahead on a motorcycle and be stupid, that's your freedom.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, your chances of killing other people in a car are far greater than on a motorcycle, and that test is stupid easy, too. And in this state, driver's licenses don't expire until you're 65.
I know, I love that. Oh, you know what's shitty, though, is this is my driver's license for the next, like, 6 months, Piece of paper.
Why? Why?
Because I have to finish my riding test before I get issued a real fucking license. Check
you
this
have
out.
to finish it. What does that mean, finish it?
I have to actually do it. So this is my Utah state license. You flip it around so nobody can see it. But they put holes in it and they're like, yeah, you're fucked. Here's a piece of paper that says, here's your license. You're going to have to keep this for the next 6 months until you complete the other test. And it's like, oh, Jesus Christ.
Oh, that's stupid.
But it wasn't that hard. But I've heard, like in another state in Texas, I was talking to another buddy. They don't need an endorsement for motorcycles. They just fucking hop right on. I don't know how true that is. I guess I could Google it, but I trusted the guy.
That's not surprising.
Okay, well, to move away from this, mask mandates. So ours ends April 10th in the state of Utah, but it doesn't like end. It's just going to, it hasn't been reinstated. What's going on in Arizona? I haven't really paid attention.
So we never had a statewide mask mandate. Last summer, I don't remember if it was June. It was a few months into everything going on, right? Mm-hmm. Ducey said that he wasn't ordering one on a statewide level and he was leaving it up to the cities to decide on a local level. I'm certain he got on the phone with a lot of the bigger cities and said, I'm going to leave this up to you guys, but you guys will make the mask mandatory. So pretty much all the big cities in Phoenix, around Phoenix, they're all mandating it. Tucson's mandating it. Probably Flagstaff. I don't know for sure. But then you go up to Prescott, the smaller places. I went to Wickenburg. They're not mandating it. It's what you would expect. The big cities are mandating it. The smaller rural areas are definitely not.
Is it more of a cultural norm to see it in like a Wickenburg area? Because you kind of get half and half up here in Utah.
I would say no. Last time I was in Wickenburg was in August, and the only place I really went into was a hardware store, and I was so conditioned to putting a mask on before going in. I walked in and no one was wearing a mask, and I was just like, am I required to wear a mask in here? She's like, fuck no, this is America. And I'm like, sweet, okay.
You took that bitch off. Oh my god, that is hilarious. Yeah, I was one of the doctors that I see or that I go to. He's from, again, same guy. He's from Texas, and he was telling me he's just like, this is just nonsense. I hate it. I hate it so much. And I'm like, what do you hate? And he goes, the mask, everything, COVID. I hate it all. I just fucking hate it all. I'm like, on a freedom level, or like, he's just like, Andrew, it's just hate. Just all of it is hate. And I get that. It's like, there is no, even if you have logic behind it, even if you believe in the masks and you want, you can wear a mask, and obviously the science is there and whatnot, you still fucking hate it. Everybody wants to raw dog the air. Oh, it just feels good. Just to be a human.
We're meant to breathe the air unrestricted. If we weren't supposed to, there would be a filter or something over our breathing holes.
Well, shit, we should have just really, if we really wanted that, we should have just nuked the fuck out of each other 40 years ago, and then we'd be then we'd really be breathing through, we'd be breathing through some sort of real filter. But, I mean, the great filter, which is everybody fucking died, and then you only had a couple people, then they'd be wearing masks. But, no, that was just so funny to me today. And I was like, well, what do you hate about it? He's like, I just fucking hate it. I just hate it all. There's no, logic anymore. It's just emotion.
It is emotion, right? So, I don't know, I'm not a scientist. I don't fucking know what's real or not with regards to masks and how well they work. But I can tell you that last January and February, I was ready for COVID before anyone was taking it seriously. Mm-hmm. And I looked into whether masks work to those types of masks, right? N95 and cloth masks or whatever, whether they work to prevent the spread of that. And overwhelmingly, the studies said, no, they don't. So I did not get masks. I had a few N95 ones that I got from Home Depot, but by all accounts, it just, for the most part, it reduces it by the chance of spreading it by some, but not enough to justify everyone wearing it.
That's so wild. I was,
and then if you remember, it started off masks didn't work, and then they did work, and then they didn't work. Like everything with this COVID-19, like nothing has been accurately reported at all. And it's only led to people being more and more skeptical of this.
Well, Andrew Cuomo, perfect example. It's like, here's this guy a year ago. I mean, everybody's like, man, even if you hated the guy, you were like, okay, it seems like he's got his shit together. He's doing like these daily fucking Zoom meetings. I'm getting sick of hearing him. But you're like, okay, thank you for being somewhat transparent or whatever, right? Fast forward a year, and they're like, yeah, this fucking asshole. He's like all these old people dying.
Old people in nursing homes.
He's just underreporting all the numbers. And it's like not an insignificant number. The last statistic I saw was like over 9,000 people that he underreported. And I'm just like, holy shit, this is in one of the bluest states in the goddamn country. And he seemed like a saint a year ago. But, what's funny too is ABC was reporting on that. And ABC is owned by the mouse, right? Disney. And then I never know who Disney... You know what Disney is when they report, like ABC News? They just report on anything that isn't bad against Disney. Like, I swear to God, man, like, watch a newscast from ABC and then watch CBS on a news day where something happened with, like, Disney. Like, CBS will just fucking rail into them. And then ABC is just like, yeah, fuck Andrew Cuomo or whatever else, right? I almost kind of think like they could be like the most unbiased news network just on the fact that they care about Disney so much. Anyways.
Yeah, I can see that. I've never really watched ABC News. ABC News, I'm pretty sure, is the one with the female reporter who she's on. They're not doing a live broadcast or anything, but she's on camera. And talking about how she had the entire Jeffrey Epstein story, and the network told her to bury it because they didn't want to ruin their relationship with the royal family.
Oh, really?
Project Veritas released that last year sometime.
Oh, shit. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was ABC. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty certain.
Well, you've seen all the shit. Speaking of the royal family, Alyssa went ahead and watched that 2-hour interview, and I got clips of it and shit like that, and we ended up watching The Crown on Netflix, just like everybody did during the fucking quarantine. I don't know if you did.
What are you talking about? What 2-hour interview are you talking about?
So there was a 2-hour interview with Meghan Markle and the other redheaded fuckboy from the royal family. Anyways, they went away from the royal family. I don't know if you know anything about this. Anyways, they did this big 2-hour interview talking about hazing, fucking the royal family. And what really struck me about all of this is I was like, what about Prince Andrew? The guy that was like, on Epstein's Island, fucking little kids. Like, can we I think this is the bigger story here.
He actually did an interview last year, I think.
Oh, it was so bad.
He had some weird answers.
Oh, it was fucking bad, Jake.
I think a lot of these people, they're so disconnected from reality, they don't realize that the mainstream narrative is collapsing, and going on TV and just saying words and having the media cover for you doesn't work anymore.
No. Unless you're very, very good. Obama, very, very good with the media and PR. He knew how to work it. But Prince Andrew or any kind of royal, you're just so distant. You're brought up that way.
Even if you're not, as long as you're friendly with the establishment types, they'll cover for you. Joe Biden is not good on any level with dealing with public relations at all right now. He's demented, literally.
Oh, yeah.
And they are covering for him.
Yeah, he's going to be 81 by the end of his first term, right?
I don't think he's going to make it that long.
Ew. Wow. Hey, I agree with you. They are pumped. I feel like during the day, if you were to watch him do a press conference in the morning and kind of see him throughout the day, there's somebody behind him just injecting him with fucking steroids. Let's fucking go, Joe.
For sure. And if you watch the debates, watch him give some kind of press conference during the campaign, and then on the debates, it wasn't even close. He was concise and relatively coherent during the debates, and they were definitely giving him some kind of performance enhancing
Whatever.
drug of some kind. I don't know what, but it's something. And it for sure is, he's so old and frail, it's killing him.
Yeah, no, and that's true. I mean, if you're taking substances every day in order to like be with it, you're only gonna last so long, especially in your late 70s, early 80s. I mean, this is a terrible example, but I love this example, which is in South Park years ago, Christopher Reeve, when he's in the wheelchair and then he's taking fetuses and snapping them in half and like sucking out all the stem cells. I feel like that's what Joe Biden's doing.
That is a conspiracy, right? I don't want to say it because we probably will get the video taken down from wherever, but there's like a conspiracy about this stuff called adrenochrome, that the elite are they're sacrificing children, and then the adrenaline that's naturally pumping from their brains, they extract from the body and then ingest it.
Oh, wow. That's wild.
Yeah.
I feel like the only real kind of solution for anybody that's not going to be genetically modified, right? And when I say genetic modification, I mean true like CRISPR technology, where you're like, in vitro fetus or whatever. Like, I just think the only way that somebody like a Joe Biden or like you and I, right, that aren't genetically engineered, are going to be able to really benefit is going to be through some sort of cybernetics. It's the only way we're going to be able to benefit in our lifetimes. And then I think, in the future, it's going to be a form of genetic modification, genetic engineering, plus cybernetics. And it's going to be you want to talk about the disparity in wealth. That's going to be, the movie with Matt Damon, Elysium. I don't know if you ever watched that movie a couple years ago.
It's been a long time, but I did see it.
Yeah, the guy with
the basic premise.
The Vicus, the guy from District 9, was the chief antagonist. Anyways, but I think the disparity in the ultra wealthy and the ultra poor is going to be much larger with a genetically modified human that has cybernetics as well. And, I think people think that cybernetics are going to be like, implants on the side of your head and you're going to look like fucking T-900 or T-9000 from Terminator, but I don't think so. I think we're going to do a very good job at hiding it in the future, so to speak. Eyes. Eyes. The Neuralink that Elon's doing is, that's just the barely beginning. And I know I'm going on this tangent here for a while, but I was thinking about this where the first kind of iteration of a cybernetic, like a Neuralink, is going to be obviously for disabled people. The second being like more mathematical equation, and it's going to be people that work with like spreadsheets all day, or like a human computer, like a mathematician. It's like, hey, I don't need to use the calculator on my computer. I can just fucking do it fairly quickly.
Yeah, I think there's definitely, Joe Rogan talks about how we're basically reproductive organs for robots.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's clearly a merging between our bodies and technology. Just our phones, we carry them around everywhere. I think for sure technology is going to help fix a lot of the medical issues we have. Especially as things start to decentralize a little more. I think also you're going to have these kind of factions of people who kind of take a more spiritual path and reject any implanting of technology into their body. And I think that's going to expand, and you're going to kind of have two different factions of society in that regard. I don't know how much that wealth disparity is going to occur because of it. It's certainly possible, depending on the socioeconomic future and political future of this country and the world. And if we do decide to take a more decentralized approach to world governance and governance in this country and on any level really, or or if we do go towards what the elite are clearly trying to do, and is a more centralized one world authority where we're all ruled over. And if that happens, I think the elite are going to get all the technology and all the advancements, and we're going to be moving more into a two-tiered society where the elites have their everything they need, all the wealth, all the money, all the food, and then we're just the peasants, and we serve at their pleasure.
Yeah.
But again, I think we are moving towards a more decentralized society. I think technology is only going to help that.
Yeah.
And I think it seems like, too, people are kind of adopting a more spiritual approach to their life, rejecting genetically modified foods, pesticides, things like that. There's so much talk about microchips and being implanted, and people are rejecting that, and now people are waking up to vaccines and being skeptical of those. I think that's only good for the future of this country and the world. Ultimately, people being skeptical of that centralized authority forcing those things upon us.
No, I mean, and it makes a lot of sense as far as that's kind of like the double-edged sword of the internet or media today, which is you have a lot of people that, you have the woke culture where it's like everybody can get onto Twitter and then lose their fucking mind over something that might be small, which isn't small. It's small to us, but maybe to them it's not. But you also have this information and this platform where everybody at any time can go ahead and kind of, reach out and say anything or even band together, right? And you kind of create kind of a decentralized aspect to our society because of that. But one thing that always comes up within the technological debate, and you're kind of right here, if there's any progress in technology, to help more of a centralization, such as, Edward Snowden, right? And I can't remember that program that the NSA put on, the specific program, but being able to hack in and search anybody, phone, iPad, whatever else. And then you have the decentralization part of it, which is, 3D printed guns, right? That's always the best example I can always come up with. I mean, it's just, I think a lot of people kind of think that this kind of technology is always benefiting the centralization of the state, but there's always going to be technology that benefits the decentralization of the state, right? And kind of give the power back into the citizens' hands. And one video I was watching 2 days ago was the demographics of China. And we think of China as this big, scary superpower. But if you look at the demographics, their age brackets, they're looking like Japan in 30 years. Because there's so many producers right now, within our age. And within 30 years, they're not going to have a whole lot of kids, and they're going to look like Japan. Like a bunch of people that, well, quite frankly, don't want to have sex with each other and don't want to have babies. And I thought that was fascinating, too, because, China's the big centralized state. So, I don't know, I think it's just the idea of, I don't think we'll ever be truly centralized. At least not with our species. We'll have to change it somehow through, full circle, right? Genetic modification and cybernetics. I just don't see us ever being fully centralized.
And this goes back to what we talked about last time, the unsustainability of centralized power. Like that level of control, it can't sustain. People who just artificially get put in positions of power, they're not qualified, they're not smart enough, they're either stupid or corrupt, or both. Mm-hmm. So whatever agenda they're trying to manufacture and create, it's going to collapse. And that's what we're seeing now. And that I believe is true every time. They may get away with it for a period of time, maybe a long period of time, but ultimately it will collapse. Talking about technology decentralizing, cryptocurrency.
Yes, yeah, that's another great example. I mean, cryptocurrency is an amazing example of that.
And the elite are trying to kind of piggyback onto that and create their own kind of system within this crypto system that's being created. But there's only so much they can do. They can use crypto and track our purchases and everything, but they're not going to be able to inflate it or print it into oblivion and devalue it and keep us poor. You know, there's like a very complex financial system forming here that is not able to be controlled by bankers. I think that's only going to continue. I mean, look, Bitcoin's $50,000 right now.
Yeah. And Dogecoin just hit 6 cents today. And I mean, Ethereum at like what, 1,300. It's absolutely wild to kind of think that idea of like finite mineral, you know, based off of, you know, gold or palladium or silver, is now making its way into this kind of, you know, virtual realm. But it's not virtual. I mean, they're concrete, and we deem whatever we think is value is going to retain value. And that kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier, whereas, you know, we'll never really be truly centralized because we have the idea of, I find that has value, you don't, but these other 10 people do, so you can go fuck yourself. And I don't know, it's the very fact that we live in that society. Just to take a step back, actually, when we look at technology as a whole, no matter how far advanced we're going to get, Jake, I never see us becoming centralized fully. I think we'll get to degrees of it, which we have, right? Feudalism, socialism, communism, obviously our republicanism today. But we're still tribal. It just won't happen. So
yeah, I agree totally. I mean, it's clear to me that the agenda is complete centralization and control of every person on this planet by the elite. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I agree completely.
What is your kind of? Well, sorry to interrupt you, but what is your like philosophy as far as like the what is Jake's like utopia?
Ancapistan.
What's that? Ancapistan? What's that?
No rulers, right? ANCAPs, that's the name for anarcho-capitalists. Mm-hmm. They believe in it's kind of what I've become over this last year, just the belief that all transactions should be voluntary, no rulers to tell us what we can or can't do, as long as what you're doing does not infringe on the rights of another person. So it'd be privatize everything, basically, and base it on a capitalist economic model, where there's no centralized authority over anything.
Wow.
The next best thing to that would be decentralizing power as local as possible. So local governments have all the power. State governments have a little less power, and then the federal government, none whatsoever. There's no reason these 50 states shouldn't be 50 different countries. And we should get to live in the place that suits our values the most. You know, that's the biggest problem with the left, is that they want to bully and force everyone into their ideology, which they think is going to be utopia, and they have no regard for how their policies affect people. Mm-hmm. And that is something else that is totally not sustainable, and it all comes down to control and telling people what they can or can't do with their lives. And the left does not want to acknowledge that that's what their ideology is based off in its entirety, but it is. The belief that they know what's better for you and better for society, the belief that looking out for the interests of society as a whole instead of letting individuals make their own decisions in how to best live their life, make their own decisions that they feel is going to work best for them. They don't believe that.
I think there's definitely power in that. And to kind of back that up with an actual rational statement, I look back on all the different forms of government, even like tribalistic government thousands of years ago, which kind of was an anarchic kind of capitalistic state-ish, at least in some tribes, right? And you think, I think, you know, as technology advances, is there a way to bring back an old form of government? Something that worked thousands of years ago? Do we need to recycle that once more? And then are we going to recycle feudalism again a couple thousand years after that, right? I just feel like the progression of technology will be constant. Human, I don't know, I just feel like the differing... I mean, how many other different government types do we have after this? And we have democracy, we have republicanism, and I feel that way. Like, what's the next step? Anarchic, ANCAP?
That would be my vote. The only way for a government to really work is for humans to transcend greed, right? They're human. Yeah, like things like greed that people seem to develop or enhance when they do get into positions of power.
But that's the good thing about...
no matter how well intentioned, it seems like more often than not, people get into positions of power and they become corrupt. And if they don't become corrupt, they're stupid, and they enact these policies that impact people negatively. In theory, I would like to believe that the Constitution, being a constitutional republic, would work. But as we've seen, it doesn't restrain government. Government grows. Whatever the government can do, it will do. And that's what we're seeing. It's just going to keep growing and expanding. It's just what it does. It's this living fucking monster that wants to just expand its power over people. Yeah. And so you would have to have some kind of real, true safety net. And the only way to do that is to have just a blanket statement that says, you can have whatever policies you want, but a person gets to make their own decisions that don't affect another person.
No.
And you have to enforce that to an extreme degree.
Yeah, no, I think what's fascinating about that, you're kind of thinking, and when you talk about greed, you're almost talking at like not like a society, almost like in a larger entity level. And greed within a large entity, like a government agency, is very, and it's not like monetary greed, it's just like power greed. Whereas your ANCAP idea is more like the individual greed is going to perpetuate a much more utopia than we have today, which, makes a lot of sense, right? I want to, benefit my friends and family, so I'm going to create the most bitchin' lemon stand in Utah, and nobody's going to tax me for it, and there's going to be fucking lemon stands all over the place. Whereas what you're talking about with greed with a government is like there is fear here, and we have the ability to create legislation that will give us more power in that form of greed. I agree definitely with the former. With the latter, the entity greed, I think we can both agree that that's fucked. That's horrific to see things like that. I mean, I even do it at a private level with, ABC, Disney, right? Their kind of monopoly that they have on copyright laws. Like, copyright laws, Jesus, that you'll never be able to fucking draw that mouse yourself in like 100 years. You'll need to have like some sort of license and pay X amount of dollars in order to do it. But
they make a lot of jokes about Ancapistan and being able to buy recreational McNukes. Like there'll be like some McDonald's type of fucking place where you can just go and buy recreational nuclear weapons and private armies and things like that. But I don't believe for a second that Ancapistan wouldn't have its problems. It wouldn't be a utopia. Yeah. But things would, to decentralize power and not throw people in fucking prison or kill them enforcing these laws, would be such a step in the right direction. Every law is based on some insecurity that someone somewhere had that they just projected onto society. Mm-hmm. Nothing more. And to continue to say that that on a national level people should be allowed to get into positions of power and just project their fears and insecurities onto everyone. Mm-hmm. And if you don't agree, or if it's harming you and there's no real recourse, you get fined, thrown in jail, or killed to enforce that. Yeah. And it's insane.
I saw a funny meme today, which was if you go to jail for evading taxes, you're now going to be living off a system that's supported by taxes. And it's just sometimes when I kind of think about this whole system, particularly, what you were saying, right? Your fears and your disbeliefs and impressing upon them amongst a larger, maybe sometimes a majority of individuals, right? Not the minority, but the majority. It's quite scary. And to your credit, too, the kind of this ANCAP kind of society, in a kind of real, truly ANCAP society, you are benefited to serve as many people as possible, so that kind of racist tendency would dissolve, right? Because you're like, I just want to make fucking money, like gobs of it. I don't care. And I don't have somebody like the state telling me, fuck, man, like, you know what? We should control who and how somebody gets married. It's like, no, man, I'm going to create my own casino here, again, in Utah with my lemon stand empire. You're going to get lemon, you're going to get lemonade, you're going to be able to get fucking married. Doesn't matter who you are. You're going to get a whole bunch of lemonade. You're going to be able to get married with anybody you want to. I don't know.
So it's interesting you bring this up, right? Eric July, he's a black rapper, and he's a big ANCAP that I listen to. Mm-hmm. He goes into the race thing a lot with regards to I can't think of the word I'm trying to discrimination.
Yeah.
So, like, if you look at the history, right, in the South, all the segregation laws, all that's Jim Crow, it all came from, it was all mandated by state and local governments in the South, right? There was no, like, obviously we had slavery here, but for the most part, once we transcended that, all the issues came from state governments and local governments in the South mandating these racist laws. And then you look at a Supreme Court case like Plessy v. Ferguson, right? There was a law that said on train cars, they had to segregate, right? So whites in one car, blacks in another. Because that was so inefficient, it caused the railroad company to have to buy more cars, and they didn't want to do that. It was going to cost them more money. So they sued. It went to the Supreme Court, and they struck it down and said, no, tough shit. You're stuck doing this.
You have to buy more train cars.
So this is a very clear example where the free market tried to solve the issue of a racist policy created by government, and the government still overruled them.
No, and I completely agree with you.
And with regards to, like, in modern day, right? Like, if a restaurant put up a sign that said no colored people allowed or anything like that, do you think that restaurant would be standing the next day?
No, God, no. Yeah. It's just so wild. It's the amount of people. And again, if I were a business owner and this is like my asset, like this is my restaurant, right? Like this is me, this is my being, right? Like it's just suicide to do something like that. I mean, it's why? Like your financial suicide, not obviously physical suicide, but it's just like you're just gonna kill your business. And again, when we talk about the free market, I mean, you do get people that are greedy, but, when we talked about greed, I can't remember the individual that was on with Joe Rogan, but they were talking about student loans or anything that's kind of backed by the government. Like, you're going to have a private enterprise be like, oh, man, it's backed by the government. Let's start churning out the money. Let's just go ahead and do whatever we can. And that's kind of the institutional greed. But if you had a true free market, you can't really do that. And you would have a lot less risk, which might not be as good, but in some ways you might have more risk. But, we don't even know because we've never had a truly free market. You look at like GameStop as a great example, right? I heard that some of the shares could have shot up into the thousands of dollars per share versus the 300 something that it hit. And now, you kind of see obviously government regulations striking that down, but then you also saw an actual kind of free enterprise strike that down as well. And I don't really know. I haven't really followed the money with Robinhood and Melvin Capital to see where's the government backed. There's got to be government backed money somewhere in there. I just don't know where. I think that's really where you see manipulation or true greed, at least on the private level, is when you have a lot of government backed money. I mean, freaking universities are a great example of that.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like yeah, guaranteeing loans, and then they can just continue to skyrocket tuition, and then they'll just keep guaranteeing the loan, and they can just up it and up it and up it, and
It's almost like monopoly money. I mean, a great example. I mean, not just me, but others, that have student loans. I'm very close to paying them all off, and I was very diligent, and I worked very hard after I graduated in order to try to pay as much as I could off. And pandemic hits, right? And then it's like, oh, I can pay these loans off with no interest. Let me just go ahead and start paying them off. And then a couple months ago, you hear in the campaign trail, we're going to go ahead and eliminate, or possibly eliminate, student loans. And I was just like, you know what? Until the government fucking figures it out, I'm not even going to pay anything anymore. Which, it's on forbearance, so fuck it. And I haven't paid a dime since last October.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I haven't paid any student loans since last October.
And you don't have to right now. It's all on hold.
It's all on that kind of relief package that Congress has passed. I was supposed to start paying again in January, but when you kind of hear the rhetoric of we're going to get rid of X amount of dollars for all student loans, I think it was $10,000, and I only have a couple left. I was just like, you know what? You guys can fucking figure shit out. I'm just not going to pay.
If you got a couple grand left, might as well just chill and see what happens.
Exactly, right? But it was so funny because Alyssa was the one. She was like, you shouldn't pay. And I'm like, no, fuck that. I should pay. And she goes, no. Like, and I mean, she pretty much made the same argument that you do. It's government. Like, they're going to figure it out or they don't, but you don't have to pay. It's not like it's our mortgage. And I was like, you know what? You're fucking right. It's government. Oh.
I mean, I would say that the chances of them actually eliminating student loan debt are slim, but it could happen. And as long as they've got you covered, like, fuck it, why not?
Yeah, I was thinking that too. I was just like, you know what I could do, Jake, and I'm doing this now, is I could take the money that I would usually spend each month to pay this off, and I was paying it off pretty quickly, and I could save it and then not pay anything with any interest, right? And then as soon as, I have to actually pay it, I take all the savings that I had and just pay it all off all at once. And I put it on my Visa card to get those goddamn points because, well, again, the free market allowing me to get credit card points for paying off a government loan. God.
Yeah, dude. That's sweet. It's funny you mentioned monopoly money, and so if you need evidence that there is inflation, listen to this. Mm-hmm. Last February, I bought my truck brand new for $26,000. This year, I just checked a couple days ago. Mm-hmm. My truck, 16,000 miles on it, over a year old now. Mm-hmm. It's worth $32,000. Used cars are performing better than the U.S. dollar is as an asset.
Well, I mean, with all the stimulus money, we know we're going to get fucked by inflation in the next 5 to 10 years.
It is coming. It is coming. It's going to be sooner than that. We're witnessing the collapse of the dollar in this entire financial system.
Oh, yeah.
They already have a new Federal Reserve dollar, Fed coin, on a blockchain ready to go.
Really?
They were about to roll it out last year in the first stimulus, but people saw it in the bill and they pulled it out. But they've got it created and it's ready to go, and they are systematically destroying the U.S. dollar right now. We're going to see stocks shoot up, and bonds are going to continue to climb as inflation gets horrible.
Yeah.
And the dollar is just going to collapse.
I know.
And it's going to be interesting to see. You talk about GameStop, right? Mm-hmm. The Commodities Future Trade Commission, they are now, so there's people doing what like the Wall Street Bets did with GameStop, except with silver. They're organizing people to go out and buy physical silver. And
just like
by doing that, it's raising the price of silver. It is impossible to find physical silver at spot price right now because it's just all deriving its value from the paper market.
Holy shit! I didn't know that. That's absolutely insane.
Yeah, so they are actually going after people online who are organizing rallies of people to go out and buy physical silver, which is fucking scary because all they're doing is just buying silver. Like, there's nothing wrong with that, and it's freaking the elite out because they've got their whole thing with manipulating silver. J.P. Morgan last year, 6 months ago, got fined $900 million, I think, for rigging the precious metals market. And the Commodities Future Trade Commission were the ones who were initially called in to investigate. They found J.P. Morgan did nothing wrong. It was the Justice Department who came in and investigated and found they did something wrong. They settled with the Justice Department and then had to pay the CFTC that fine of $980 million.
Well, the question there is did they come out even? Was it a net?
They came out way ahead. They're still fucking doing it.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's
they're right. The biggest scam, right, is like with gold. They've got, like, imagine just 1 ounce of gold in a room, and on every side of this room is a window with a person behind it looking in, but they can't see the people behind the other windows looking in at it. So they're selling that same piece of gold to 4 people, and that creates
inflation.
It makes it seem like there's more gold than there actually is. And this has been well known for a while, and nothing is being done about it. They don't care. This is a game. They also spoof. Yeah. They're big on spoofing, so they'll create a limit order for buying or selling, and make people think that they're ready to buy or sell it, and then for a ridiculous amount, and then pull it, and that fucks with the prices.
Jesus Christ! Well, it's like Vicodin, right? The company that sold Vicodin, marketed Vicodin, had to pay, like, I can't remember exactly who it was, but they had to pay like $500 million or something like that, or a couple $1 billion. But the amount of money that they made was like $25 billion. So they, at the end of the day, they only lost a couple billion. And it's so funny when you hear stuff like that, because again, like, thinking of how a modern corporation or any company would think, if I were on that team and we're developing Vicodin, it's like, okay, let's go ahead and do what the revenue projections would be. Oh, also, let's think of this contingency of, like, a whole shit ton of people get addicted to it, and we're going to have to pay $2 billion, but we're not going to have to pay that for, like, the next 20 years. So let's go ahead and almost put it as, like, a depreciating asset on the balance sheet and be like, you know, technically, let's act like we're paying ourselves, like, a couple million every quarter or however much, or 200 million. So when the time comes, we can go ahead and pay off the lawsuit or the settlement. And I mean, like, that would be amazing to see that. Like, somebody come out with a documentary and be like, oh yeah, when we were doing Vicodin stuff and we were doing the projections, they told us to do this. That's the documentary I want to see. Shit like that. Or J.P. Morgan. Or J.P. Morgan with the commodities doesn't sound as cool as, like, Vicodin, but it's the same ideals and it's the same economics.
Well, you talk about centralized authority, right, and how that leads to corporations exploiting power and doing shit like that. Yeah. You think about the FDA, right, and just withholding legitimate treatments for medical conditions that are both safe and effective. Yeah. And then getting doctors by not having any legitimate treatments for rare diseases and chronic illnesses, things like that, which just pushes doctors to just prescribe pain medication. Oh, yeah. Because there's no alternative treatments. That's what happened to me, right? And then I ended up finding a treatment for my medical condition, cluster headaches, one of the most severe debilitating pains known to medicine. Yeah. I end up finding a treatment for it in another country. Yeah. I have to illegally import it, take it without any communication with my doctor whatsoever. It's not FDA approved. There's thousands of us doing this with amazing results, over 90% effectiveness and no side effects that have been documented that we've been able to find. Yeah. All because none of the treatments here worked. The treatments that are here almost killed me. I got serotonin syndrome when I took Imitrex and venlafaxine as a prophylactic for the headaches. The other thing that actually did work was steroids, corticosteroids, but those fuck your kidneys up. Yeah. I always felt like shit. I ended up gaining a bunch of weight. Yeah. So like, if I was still working within the established medicine of the FDA and the establishment medicine, I would be in horrible health right now. I would not be a functional human being.
And that is Jesus.
And that's one of the scams too that a lot of these people don't talk about with regards to the opioid crisis is the lack of treatments for severe chronic complex illnesses.
Yeah.
And really pain meds are the only legal option there are. And by just saying doctors need to stop prescribing them is not a solution.
Yeah.
And this is all because of the FDA and their ridiculous standards.
Yeah.
Saying that well, first of all, if you're dying or you've got a severe debilitating illness that you can't just take something that your doctor and you have decided you should try and take. It's experimental. Mm-hmm. Forcing people to take placebos is ridiculous. They're doing that a lot less now, fortunately, but
I didn't know that.
But also, if there's all our bodies are different, right? This goes back to kind of technology in our bodies. Mm-hmm. All our bodies are different, so different treatments can yield different results for different people, or the same treatment can yield different results for different people. Mm-hmm. So if a treatment is 100% effective for 10% of people, the FDA probably won't allow it to advance, right? They won't allow it to come to market.
Yeah.
If a treatment is effective, but it's going to interfere with a drug that's already on the market, that a drug manufacturer has been promised to control the treatment share of for however long, they won't let it come to market. So it's things like that no one fucking talks about that really need to be addressed. Trump signed the one of the first things he did was the right to try law. And all it did was...
I remember that, yeah.
It didn't even do a whole lot. It just, if a drug or treatment has completed one phase 1 clinical trial, people have a right to take it. He had more drugs and medical treatments approved than any other time in history. And there were 3 different migraine medications all approved within a couple years of each other, which is unheard of for a same treatment. Oh, wow. Different treatments for the same medical condition coming out in such a short period of time. And the first ever FDA-approved treatment for cluster headaches came out during that time. This is one of those things I give Trump a massive amount of credit for. I don't know if he knew someone who was fucked over by the FDA, but he was very aggressive on it in his first year of office.
I didn't know that. Well, I wanted to kind of end with a conspiracy theory I was thinking of recently, which was the genetic modification, genetically engineering humans. And I don't know if you remember this, right? As a basis, right, Wuhan was the start of the COVID-19, and also there is, what was it, that some sort of biological weapons lab there of some kind. Which, you kind of put your tinfoil hat on and think, okay, well, maybe, put 2 and 2 together, that's where it started. So that's kind of the basis. But then you look at the very beginning of the pandemic, or right before it started, we had our first real genetically modified human beings get born, right? I don't know if you heard about this, but it was a set of twins, and it was a Chinese doctor that genetically modified these 2 twins to be like pretty much immune against AIDS. Like they have this particular gene that only shows up in like West Africa, and if you have it, you can pretty much like never get infected by AIDS. And it's like the most good you could ever do for a human being. And he added that into the kids. They survived, they're alive. And right after that happened, COVID-19 happens. And it's just like, I mean, that's a pretty momentous technological feat that we did that. But in order to like make everybody forget about it, we've got COVID-19 that happened right afterwards. So anyways, a bit of a conspiracy theory I thought of to hide even more experiments like that.
It's interesting that no one ever talks about that. I've never heard of that. So it wouldn't surprise me in the bit. There is so much that went on with COVID that it was able to kind of get us to look past, right? The Hong Kong protests in China.
Oh, God, yeah, no shit.
There were videos getting smuggled out of China of people just passing out in the streets, people getting kidnapped by CCP members with hazmat suits carrying automatic weapons. And what we saw coming out of China is not what was going on in the rest of the world. So they were staging these videos from the beginning, putting them on Twitter, and then pretending to arrest the dissent of the people who were putting them on Twitter. This was all staged. and I don't know to what end, but it wouldn't surprise me if that had something to do with it. The elite, right? It's convenient for me that Joe Biden and all his ties to China, and then this thing comes out of China. It totally destabilizes the country in election year. Donald Trump's running for re-election, who is not controllable by the elite. They wanted to punish us for voting for him. I didn't personally vote for him, but they wanted to punish the people of this country for voting Trump into office, and they don't want to deal with him anymore. So I think that had something to do with it. There's certainly, I think, a lot that had to ultimately do with COVID and the timing of COVID.
Yeah, no, and that was kind of my addition to all of this was, I mean, those are the only two that we know of. What are the other kind of genetic modifications that are happening to, well, effectively, babies before they're born out of China? We don't know. And maybe we'll know in like 40 years, but that was kind of my tinfoil conspiracy theory was this happened and then COVID-19 happens. And nobody's talking about this, but, talk about transcendence. Genetically modifying human beings is pretty much the fucking transcendence. So,
yeah, dude, fuck. I'm gonna look into that. Let's talk about this a little more next time.
Cool. Well, this is good, Jake.
Yeah, don't hang up yet. I'm gonna stop recording. Let's chat for a minute.
Cool.